All right, we've pretty much gone through the book and what I wanted to cover with that, and we're going to start a series of projects now. Hopefully, it will end with the port scanner project, depending on how we do as we go through the program. Different programs that we want to create. So, first project that we're going to design, I'm going to give you some steps on things we need to look at. There's a little exercise that you'll do in the middle of this and turn in for a grade today, and then it will be on the website on D2L early this afternoon after I go through the creating a PDF. So the first thing we want to take a look at is what are we going to design? So we need to create a software system to track individual logging onto a company's workstations. I caution you as we go through this, don't read into it more than what the requirement is. That's one of the problems that new programmers seem to have. They want to show how smart they are or how much they can find on the internet. And when the client wants a system for 50 bucks, they design them a $200 million do all end all that'll also make coffee in the morning before the client gets there. So don't go overboard. Look at what's needed and stop there. So there's the first thing. As we log in, we need to record the time on and off that any user logs in to this workstation. In addition to that, we need the user's name. That shouldn't be too hard to get because they're going to have to log in. And then we want to be able to allow the user to create and store their own username and password. So if an individual tries to log into the system and they've never logged in before, they'll be prompted to create a username and password, and then going forward, that username and password will be available for them to log in so they can do their work. And that's what that bullet says. It's a reusable system that we're looking for. All right, what I want you to think about are what are the files that we need to create and what procedures or functions do we need to have to accomplish the task that is outlined in number 1. I'm going to give you 15 minutes to answer questions 2 and 3. I want you to think about it. You can print it out on the printer if you want to. Make sure your name's on it. However, please note, if you handwrite it and I look at it and I can't read it, it goes in the trash. So use your best handwriting. And the timer has started now, 15 minutes.
That must be a problem for programmers.
Yes, it is. And I am one of them. So if you'll notice, I print almost everything I do.
So we're doing, was it 2 and 3?
2 and read the screen.
I am.
RTFM. I'll tell you when you grow up. Oh, darn, the mic was on. So what we want to look at, come on.
Hello, Bill Gates.
I don't. Is what do we need?
If they'll stay, let's see if they have a new platforms, by the way.
Yeah.
If they are a new user or an old user.
Okay, so we need function statement. This may not work. This is not going to work at all. to trust me on this. Oh, what the?
I think we're up to 15 now.
It happened earlier on in the meeting this morning.
Shut up.
What else do we need?
Dictionary.
All right, somebody else. Dictionary is one way. What's another way we could do that?
Put it in a text file?
Yep, put it in a text file. Which is going to be easier?
Probably the text file.
Okay. What would be the advantage of using a dictionary over a text file or vice versa? Somebody other than Colton and Matt.
The dictionary, you can call specific stuff out of it, but the text file you can't.
Okay. Can we update the dictionary on the fly?
Yes.
All right. Can we update the text file on the fly?
Well, you have to go into the file and mess with it.
You'll have to go into the file, which lends itself to making that, creating a what, more than likely? All right, go ahead, Matt.
Creating a dictionary would be easier.
Well, creating a dictionary, but I was thinking of there's something we could create for our user. Make this a whole lot simpler for us. Hint, it was in chapter 12 or 11. Object, right?
Oh,
Couldn't we make a user object and then record it to either a dictionary or a text file, right? So we get the same things. All right, so we may want to look at creating an object. What else are we going to need?
The raw input statement. I mean, or the raw input function to ask for raw input from the user.
You're going to need a function for input. Okay. What else?
A timestamp for whenever they log in.
Ah, very good.
Along that lines, I do have a question.
Go.
You can use the dollar sign and then capital date. Does that work for time with the computer as well? Dollar sign time, capital time.
It should, but you're also going to get seconds if you do that. And you
Are
can,
there switches?
there are, and if you use the switches, then you can identify the year, the month, the day, and the hour, and minutes, and then just do addition and subtraction. That would work too. So if we got log in, what else are we going to need?
Log out.
Log out. What else?
The write function to write to a log file.
Write to the log file. Okay. What are we gonna? What? There's something else we've kind of missed here.
A place to create a username and password.
Well, that would be a given, and it'd be created in whatever the Python path we created in our pipe when we set Python up. So if by default you set up py on the C drive as the folder that all your Python work is going to go to, these files would be created in that folder in whatever project name you named. My recommendation is to make sure that you have a thumb drive or some sort of device you can set this project on, because we're going to work on it probably for about 2 weeks, about 3.5 classes. All right. So good point though, you are going to have to designate some place where it can go. Think about the log file or that user file. What are we going to need for that? There are three separate things we need.
Username, password, time.
Well, username, password, and time, yeah, but you're thinking too narrow. Think broad. On a broad point, what do we need for that user file? Okay, you log in. What's the first thing it's going to have to do?
Prompt you for a username and password.
Okay, a prompt. Now, there's two directions we can go from here. What's one of them?
User exists and user does not exist.
Yep. And if not, what's going to happen?
Do you want to?
Say again?
Create a new user.
You're going to have to create a new user and a password.
So then we'll have to have a statement. Do you wish to create a new user? Because otherwise, if it just goes to creating a new user, then that's bad. So we'll have to, do you wish to create a new user with this username? No, re-log in. Do that, right?
Okay, you can do that, but what happens if I go to log in and I'm still on the good drugs the surgeon gave me for my oral surgery last Friday and I misspell my last name?
Then you say, no, that's not right. Then if you mistyped it, no, you go back in and
How's the program going to know you mistyped it though, Colton?
If it doesn't see a password, that password for that username, that's correct.
Well, but if it can't figure out what your new username is, what we've got to look at, think about when you log on a web page somewhere. Log into Facebook, whatever, or Amazon.
You need like a loop to send you back into the prompt to say, no, you didn't get it right, try again.
Or give them an option. No, it's not right. All right, I log in and I get username or password was invalid. What should my option be next?
Create an account or recover.
Create an account or try again. All right. So we've got to start thinking about it in that way. So how's that going to be done? We can use a dictionary to drag the information out, but how do we create that loop process? What do we got? What are we more than likely going to use?
For loop, maybe?
For loop, possibility, if,
That way you could also set up a counter, like if you try to log in too many times, it just boots you out.
you could do that
okay, a for loop, so if you try and log in too many times,
5 times.
you're booted out of the system. All right? There's one. What's another way you could do it?
An if-else statement?
If-else statement works also. What's an out-of-the-box statement?
While, maybe?
While what, Matt?
While the password, while username or password is invalid, you keep trying again, or
Okay, so that would be a while,
While true
no,
or while
while false.
while false, which is a different option than what you normally think about in code. What we've coded up to this point is what? While true, do the following. So now we want to do while false. And that way, if the password or the ID isn't correct or they need to create another one, they can't get out of that loop until they trip it to true. All right, so some different options to think about. Which is the best way to write it? I don't know. Depends on how you're going to code it. So you may want to try one of several different ways. What else do we need to look at?
so we have
We've got a timestamp, correct?
And that's just counting when you log in and when you log out, not the period in between or,
Correct.
okay.
We need to figure out how we're gonna make all this mesh together. Whether,
Ah.
whether we're gonna do all of this as separate files for easy troubleshooting.
Colton, I hate to give you a gold star, but you get a gold star for that. We got to figure out how this is all going to work, or we could say, what's the shell that we're going to run from? Maybe better said, what's our program shell?
C shell with Linux.
No, not C shell with Linux. C sharp maybe. All this can be done in Python, all right, very easily. What files are you going to have to create initially? How do I want to put this? When you think about our user file and our log file, are you going to want to create those and then have them sit there as blanks and append to them? Or can they be created on the fly and appended to later? What's your thought?
You can create and append to them, but I mean, the main thing is you mainly just want to be able to append to them to make sure they stay there for future logons.
Okay. Other thoughts?
For separate files and all that, I was thinking when I did my assignment, do a file for your dictionary, do a file that has all your timestamp data, and then assigns the timestamps to your dictionary. And that way you have every aspect of your program is separated, so if something goes wrong with a specific detail, you can track it down to this and isolate it and use print statements to print every aspect of it and figure out this is why it ranked. This is why I went wrong, because this specific line of code returns the wrong statement.
Okay. So,
That way you can separate it, and then and then have the prompt on a separate line as well. So a total of about 4 files: the dictionary, the prompt, the user class, the timestamps, and then
okay. 4 files we may be going a bit too far. But let's look at this for a second. And what Colton said is very apropos for right now. What we are creating is a mini database. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
All right. Bayer's rule of database creation. Create the data, enter it once, make sure it's correct, and never touch it again. So and that way you can't make any errors. So if we create a password file and all we do is either write a new individual's information to it or read an individual that's already in existence, read their ID and their password, then we can't really get in trouble with our password file, correct? Question, go ahead.
Need to design something so if they input the wrong password or something and they can't figure it out within like 3-4 tries, they say forget password, like do something to recover or rewrite the password? Or is this just going to be writing a password one time?
It depends on how sharp your users are, I guess. We'll look at, and what you're talking about, what are we actually talking about here? Error routines, right? How are we going to handle the error? That's coming up next Tuesday. So hold on to that thought. That's a good question. Right now, we'll assume that our user remembers their username, remembers their password. They're going to put the data in and then log in. If we create a separate file for the login and log off, an individual is going to log in, that'll get written, and they'll log off. That'll get written. Will they have to do anything to initiate that? No, not if we write it correctly, because we're already going to have their username, correct? We'll have that in the value somewhere. so we can automatically write to that file when they started, and our close sequence can include a log off time when they log off. Hey, any file that you can create where the user can't get their fingers into it to mess up's a good file, right? So we'll be recording their time without them having to take any function. So there's another function that you need to look at. How are you going to log off and log on? I think we've got log on already in there somewhere. What problems do you see with this?
With the log on, log off,
Or just overall.
Overall, with the operation. Given we've got a problem that was brought up that if we screw up too many times, what are we going to do? Well, we know we're going to have to write an error routine for that. So we can look at that down the road.
So would we want a counter for something like that?
You might want a counter involved. Let's talk about that for a couple of seconds. What's going to be the easiest way to keep track of somebody logging in wrong?
For loop.
Yeah, the for loop.
Whatever works.
Yeah.
when we use a text file like we've been using and have it output all the error files that normally output to the console and output them to a text file so that we can review them.
Ah, very good. Why? We want to review the error files. Why might we want to do that?
Because we do that in Linux when we're messing around with shell scripting, because it allows us to analyze. When we've actually messed up the entire shell itself, it allows us to say, oh, we screwed up that little thing right there. That makes the entire thing run right. And we can go back in there and put it back.
Okay, so hold that for when we start to look at the error file. Any other problems you see here?
The login, or not login, the timestamp stuff, we would have to stay logged in for at least a minute to tell if that thing's actually working or not. And considering that it's just a general program for our own amusement, it'd be kind of maybe annoying. I don't know where I'm getting at with that. I mean, I think it'd be kind of, if you're just running through to test the program, I guess, and you test it, you enter in the usernames and say less than a minute, then you can't tell if the timestamp's actually working, if it's just recording the beginning times both times, or if it's actually changing or not.
Actually, you can run out to the seconds and you can tell if
Okay,
it's working or
I can do
not.
that part.
Yeah. We can go out to the milliseconds if we want to, but that starts to get ridiculous. We don't need milliseconds. Yeah. You overachievers may do that with my permission. All right, what else do you see that might be a challenge with this? We're going to have to look at some different things that we want to import to make all this work. The first thing you're going to want to look at is say again?
I said, yay, more manual pages.
More manual pages. We want to look at how do we import time in so we can automate it, and once we do that, is there a simple way to import time? This is a theoretical question, Colton. Put your hand down. Oh, all right. You can scratch your neck then. I'll leave that in the file. What you need to look at between now and Thursday is if there's a time function that we can import that's already built into Python or our operating system, how do we then actually get that time and how can we display it? And that's something you're going to want to have in your back pocket for Thursday. So we've got a pretty good list here. We'll put this out. I'll put this out on the network. Hang on. I'm trying to I hate Bill Gates. I hate Bill Gates. I hate Bill Gates. All right, so what you need to do for Thursday, create the function that will look up the user log. Don't create the user log yet. Just put together the code you think you're going to use. And then create a prototype for the user log. How do you want to set that text file up? And put in a dummy user. All right. Check the facts for what you need based on what was on our first couple of slides. And this is worth 40 points. So you want to have it done. You want to turn in a copy and have a copy available on your computer because we're going to build from that on Thursday. Any questions with the assignment? Okay, you've got some time left. Go ahead and work on it now. By the way, I started to worry in the last set of assignments that people were sharing information, but the folks that I thought might have been doing it, one of them misspelled one word, so I guess maybe they weren't. But please do your own work. You're not going to be able to copy from somebody when you start to work for Devon. They put you in a corner office and there's nobody else around. So work on your own. I'll give you a hand if you need help. All right, I'll see you Thursday at 11.